Castilia was a 65, maybe 67% of the peninsula, and he was the king of kind of the rest somehow, another 30% more or less. So before kingdoms, smaller kingdoms too. We had these two massive ones, Castilia and Aragon, and then smaller ones, but when they married, they kind of unified everything, including politics, right? But armed forces and religion. So some of you probably heard about 1492. All the Jewish and Muslims living in the peninsula had to either convert or leave. And she sponsored this place, thinking on being buried down in it. But going back to these three cultures, as we say, the three communities, the Moorish, they were still controlling a big side of the south of Spain, right? You know where Granada city is located, maybe roughly? Granada is a province, a city, but in those days it was a kingdom that was most of the southern coast of Spain nowadays. And they were conquering from west to east, because Granada is east side. Before they went to places like Malaga, and in those places they had Christian prisoners in dungeons, and they rescued them, they liberated them. And meanwhile this was under construction. So some of those prisoners that were liberated by the Catholic kings, or in this case the Queen, came here to pay respect to the Queen, asking the monks to allow them to place their handcuffs up there. Come closer. Let's take a look at them. So those are real handcuffs of those times. Iron made. There is iron. And what we can see is kind of half the number they used to have. Not even half. Maybe a third or a quarter. Because actually it seems the whole facade was covered in those handcuffs. But the weight of the handcuffs was jeopardizing the structure. As you can see, it's been recently renovated. They even cleaned everything with sandblasters. They did a wonderful job. So think on what happened with the rest of the handcuffs we cannot see there nowadays. Well, in the 1970s, not that long ago, the mayor of the city decided that, so many handcuffs were causing trouble, so they took away more than half of them. They melted them, and guess the origin for the iron of all these much newer chains we have all over. And you'll see more around the city. Most of the iron used for this is just to avoid the vehicles coming through, right? Was recycled. So recycling is nothing that new. Come along. And look, going back to the three cultures. So yeah, in 1492, everybody was forced to be a Christian, but the reason was actually much simpler than it seems, you see. Nothing to do, against the religions or the religions, but the Christian religion, no, not that much. And Christian, biggest Jewish quarter in the country here, for a simple reason, because Toledo was the capital of Castilia, so it was a principal city, and in all those centuries that we say were very poorly educated in terms of reading and writing, but the Jewish communities, the Jewish gentlemen, they all knew how to read and write, and they were acknowledged in many more things, in many more skills, let's say. So guess who were the ones in charge of what we call nowadays public administration? There were always Jewish gentlemen that helped for big Jewish communities to flourish, mainly in the big cities, because it's where the public administration was based, right? Let me show you something I think is interesting. Look, this is the fine arts school of the city. We have still stone masons. Look, this is their workshop. I think it's very interesting. You see, they have some pieces they've been practicing with, different kinds of minerals. The most common mineral around is granite stone. You can tell because we are walking on granite stone all the way. And also, I don't know if you figured it out before, but on our way here, fields that are looking orange color, right? Guess where they got all these bricks? from all that clay. Generally in the country, not only in Toledo, is pure clay fields or granite stone. The basements in that other twin building that is actually the same. So it's like we have the main fine art school building and then a satellite, but it's practically just an exact copy. Look here, they have this beautiful garden, and they use to sometimes to exhibit some of the pieces they create. Oh, this is interesting. We have that big head showing, well, it seems, Miguel de Cervantes, the right of the Man for La Mancha, very related to the city. It's a bit of, kind of modern art pieces around here, I can tell. And this side of the city, well, today it seems like peaceful, right? Perdóneme. A few cars going through, but it's very restricted, the city, in terms of Zokodover. Zokodover. But maybe you forget about the name, listen. But you won't forget about McDonald's. The plan is to be reaching McDonald's site around 12. Let me move a little bit away from the other. You are in. The street we are named after St. Thomas to these vehicles. Why? Because there is room for us around here. With enough, let's say, distance closer to busier side of the city, right? Apart from, well, it's busy because of the rest of your big group anyway. But look, I'm gonna use my umbrella. It's nothing fancy. It's very plain color. It's a little bit green camouflage green, but I'm gonna be the only one with an umbrella. Still. I'm just teasing you. Look here. We have the bell tower, right? Looks very much Arabic, as you can see. Those elements, very typical in the northern African structures, because most of the Moorish people, they were coming from northern Africa, right? Nowadays, Morocco, Algeria. We call them Moorish because they were coming from the side of the world that was called Mauritania in those days. So forget about Mauritania country nowadays. Nowadays, Mauritania is much further down south in African continent. But in those days, Middle East centuries, the whole northern side of African continent was called Mauritania, actually named after a Roman emperor called Moro. So that's why we call baguette rotten, right? Outside. But it's just a way to show the significance of that particular Church of St. Thomas. Here the people, big size of vehicle, watch your step. Here. Very, because we are all going to the same place. We are all going to the cathedral, the square. And we are just about to leave Jewish quarter, or what was considered a Jewish quarter. There were no walls, there were no gaps, no physical gaps splitting the quarters. Cross when it's safe, okay? There might be cars coming to your right and side, but I'm just gonna hold here. And as you can see now, this thing of the umbrella makes more sense, isn't it? I'm planning to buy a brighter color umbrella when this one gets broken. No, Pink color, I told you about my reputation. Well, pink color might be matching my reputation, very likely. All right, I think we are almost continuing. Although I can say at least one of us, you're risking your life now in this very moment. Perdone, gracias. Careful, there is this taxi coming too. They tend to be gentle in most cases. Not always, but in most cases. Look, here down the decline, you can see it gets a little bit steeper. Walk slowly. If you want to do like me, this will give you an extra grip if you go through the center, through these cobblestones, or like some of you are doing greatly, through the side. Because the rest are actually river stones. They are very slippery whenever it rains a bit like today, like this morning. Now first left, and then left again. Left and left. And there is this wooden door. Don't be shy. Go for it. Go through it. Because you... But someone, long time ago, someone was very cheeky. This family, they tried to keep the street for them. And that's why they built that door. And the structure that looks very much like a facade of a house. Because they were the owners of these two constructions in times. So think on this, you're the owner of these two buildings. This is the street that goes in between them both. And you have the money. You build that thing over there. You make it look like a facade of a house. And you keep the street for you. Same principle the other side. But, of course, the city government wasn't pleased, right? That happened when Madrid was made the capital, because when Madrid was made the capital, is when Toledo lost most of its population in favor of Madrid, right? And many people left because their jobs were in Madrid, and they trying to sell their properties as soon as possible, and the best way is just to lower the price so much they will take it. And that's when these things happened, because there were a few owners of big numbers of properties. And here, this is the very best location for Santa Maria de Toledo, to show you. Come along, go downstairs, slowly please. I'm not worry. And the cathedral, this cathedral is the second largest in the country. It's because the cheeky people of Sevilla wanted to have a bigger one, and they did. Shame on them. But the one in Sevilla is 200 years newer than this one. So this was for 200 years the greatest one in terms of size, right? The largest one. And is a jewel, isn't it? It was designed in Gothic style initially, but it took 3 centuries for it to be built. So many other, let's say, artistic currents came through. Imagine, through 3 centuries. And they were embraced with those other artistic styles, including, that's the real reason behind the power of that order nowadays, but it was much more powerful in Europe, because we are just in one of the many cities in Europe that were basically completely built in stone, right? I always like to make that kind of point, because I think it's interesting. And now, who paid for this? It's a good question, isn't it? Who paid for it? Well, mostly the bigger funds were given by aristocrats, the king, of course, archbishop, and they had their VIP entry, and it was this one. And that's why we have those very high knockers And that's also why the door is so tall. Do you think the Spaniards were NBA players in those days? No way. But this was done for the ones who gave bigger money. And those were aristocrats that were never walking on their feet. They were always on horsebacks. Knocking on your horseback, in you go on your horseback. That's why you can see the design. And the aristocrats were willing to contribute for the well-being of everybody's souls? Yeah, they said. But there's another side of the story, right? And the other side of the story that still some people believe, for Christians, more in olden days, they thought that being buried down in a church was a fast track for their souls to reach heaven. And if the church was already built, it still works the same way nowadays. You go to a church, you want to be buried down in the church because it's significant for you, and you ask the vicar if you can get buried down there when you pass away. And very, very much, they will always say, no, you can't. Unless you give a massive donation. But if you are the one sponsoring the construction of that church, what do you think the vicar will say? Yes, go for it. You are more than welcome to be buried down here. That's why they gave bigger money. Look, here is the main street. I know, it's not looking like a main street for our standards, right? This place, to our left-hand side, this boutique, is an incredible deli, specialized in local products, that massive eel in marzipan, of course Spanish ham and all the delicacies, and manchego cheese, because you are in Castilla-La Mancha, and that's why manchego is called that way, because it's originally from La Mancha. It's pure sheep's milk, and it's very strong in flavor, but it's lovely. I do love it. If you are cheese lovers, you never tried manchego. I don't believe. Probably if you're cheese lovers, you've already tried manchego. But in case you haven't, it's very much like pecorino. Have you ever tried pecorino? Maybe it's very much like pecorino in terms of texture. Flavor is a little bit different. It'll be more kind of the taste will be a bit more gentle than pecorino, I'll say. Texture, beautiful. Look, it's all about main street chicks. Through you used to have more authentic, if I may call them that way, or traditional, more mainly since the lockdown. Because imagine in my country we had one of the toughest lockdowns in the world. We were 3 months imprisoned at home. Yes, I use the right words. In prison. I could only leave the house to buy groceries, take the bins down, and that's it. I still hate the time in our lives because of my two little girls, because I'm a father of two. So when that happened, imagine this was ghost town. And many people that were close to the retirement age, many shopkeepers, they sold the business. I'll do the same. That was in their shoes. So that's why we have many more mainstream nowadays. Look, as a kind of a point of reference for you. Down the decline, I'm pointing at 12 o'clock in front of me, we have the worst kind of war. We are still healing somehow as society, right? As society. So imagine, we stop for that beautiful view here, remember, with the coaches. So imagine in 1936, what happened was an attack to the city. We are artillery batteries placed all over those hills, placed on the cigarrales I showed you. They were aiming the Alcazar, that fortress on top of a hill. long time ago, just a palace. But in those days, in the 1930s, it was a military base. And in a war, the first thing you're going to get rid of is the enemy's base, right? Makes sense. So they were aiming in 2 nights non-stop. Imagine the number of projectiles that were shooting. Now away we go reaching main square. It's going to be open to our eyes. It should be a market where the rest of the world, I believe, for there's an ambulance coming other way, you don't mind. Maybe go into Europe. Because these people, they have their hands full enough, isn't it? All right, now I was trying, but it was not enough. Okay, let's go. Never say I wasn't trying. Yeah, they're going over there. Who knows? And now, for the market square, still is the main commercial sector. And you'll see, it's easy. And let's see if you can find a McDonald's. We'll see which is. We have a winner today, and for once he's a man. Perdónese. Because didn't the other ladies, the first one, in front of the McDonald's, in front of the Golden Arches, round there. My advice: if it rains, as simple, get under those portals, right? Get some shelter. You're gonna be still seeing everybody around. Make sense? And the meeting time for you to leave. Now you have time at leisure, okay? For lunch, for shopping, for whatever you want, for your coffee. Sorry for it was just teasing. No, whatever. So the plan is for you to just wander around, explore a little bit. That's why also I gave you the meeting point, kind of a, not meeting point, a point of reference of the cathedral.
The only thing I would say is I wish I had a really long over there. Tú sabrás si lo notas o no. Y que me parece que